The night was dark and quiet, and the wind whispered softly through the narrow streets of the small town. The maid's daughter was finishing her daily chores when she heard a faint knock at the door. She paused, her heart beating a little faster. It was unusual for anyone to come by so late. She wiped her hands on her apron and approached the door cautiously, peeking through the small window. Outside, she saw a man standing in the shadows. He looked tired, his clothes wet from the rain, and his face carried a weariness that seemed deeper than just a long walk. She hesitated for a moment. Her mother had always taught her to be careful with strangers, to never open the door to someone she didn't know. But there was something about him, something that made her hesitate to turn him away. He seemed more desperate than dangerous. And when he raised his eyes to hers, she saw a flicker of hope, a silent plea for help. Her heart softened. "Please," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "I don't have anywhere to go tonight. Can I stay just for a few hours? I won't trouble anyone." The maid's daughter looked back at the small home she shared with her mother. It was modest, with barely enough room for the two of them. They had always struggled to make ends meet, but they had enough for themselves. And tonight there was some extra food in the kitchen. She thought about it for a moment, weighing the risks, but the sight of the man standing there, soaked from the rain and shivering, made her decision. "Just for one night," she said finally, opening the door. "You can stay, but only until morning." The man's eyes lit up with relief, and he nodded gratefully. "Thank you. I promise I won't cause any trouble." She led him inside, quickly gathering some dry clothes and a blanket. Her mother, hearing the commotion, appeared from the back room. The maid's daughter explained the situation, and her mother, though cautious, agreed. "If he is honest and only needs to rest, then it's fine. But be careful," she said gently. The man settled into the small guest corner near the fireplace. He was polite and quiet, and the maid's daughter found herself curious about his story. He didn't speak much at first, only enough to express thanks and ask simple questions about their home. But slowly, as the warmth of the fire spread and the rain continued to fall outside, he began to talk. He shared pieces of his life, small moments of hardship and struggle, tales of roads traveled and opportunities lost. The maid's daughter listened intently. There was a certain honesty in his words, a vulnerability that made her realize he was not like the other strangers she had heard about in town, the ones who would take advantage of kindness. He was tired, yes, but he also seemed wise, carrying with him stories that only life could teach. Hours passed, and the storm outside began to settle. Yet inside, the atmosphere was calm and warm. The maid's daughter felt a strange connection to this man, a sense of understanding that was rare for her. She had always been kind-hearted, always ready to help others, but she had never met someone who made her feel that her small act of kindness could mean so much. She realized that sometimes the world could surprise you when you least expected it. As the night grew deeper, the man began to share stories of dreams he had once held, of ambitions he had chased but lost along the way. He spoke of moments when he had wanted to give up but had pushed forward despite the obstacles. The maid's daughter found herself inspired. She had her own dreams, simple ones, yet this man's courage made her think bigger, imagine more. For the first time in a long while, she felt a spark of hope for herself, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, life could change for the better. They spoke of small joys too, the beauty of a sunset, the comfort of a warm meal, the importance of honesty and trust. He listened to her stories as well, about her life with her mother, the challenges they faced, and the little moments of happiness they clung to. There was no judgment, only understanding. For hours, they shared thoughts and feelings as if they had known each other for a lifetime. When she finally looked at the clock, she realized how late it had become. The man smiled softly, noticing her gaze. "I should not keep you up," he said. "You have a long day ahead, and I don't want to trouble you." "You're not troubling me," she replied, her voice gentle. "It's nice to talk to someone who understands. Thank you for sharing your stories." He nodded, gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you for giving me a place to rest. Not many people would do what you did tonight. You have a kind heart." The maid's daughter felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of pride that came not from anything material, but from the simple act of helping someone in need. She realized that life was not just about surviving, but about the connections we make, the kindness we give, and the moments we share. As the night went on, the fire burned low, and the rain finally stopped. The man laid down on the blanket she had provided, closing his eyes. She watched him for a moment, thinking about how a single decision, to open the door, to offer a stranger shelter, had already changed the atmosphere of their small home. It was as if a new energy had entered their lives, quiet but undeniable. The maid's daughter returned to her small bed, her mind alive with thoughts and emotions. She felt a mix of curiosity, wonder, and anticipation for what the morning would bring. She didn't know who this man truly was, what future events might unfold because of this one night, but she sensed that something important had begun. Outside, the first hints of dawn were breaking through the clouds, casting a soft light on the wet streets. The town was still quiet, but inside the small home, a new chapter had started. The maid's daughter, lying awake for a few more minutes, realized that life often came in unexpected ways. A knock at the door, a stormy night, a stranger in need. All of it had led to a moment that she would remember forever. And as sleep finally claimed her, she dreamt not of fear or uncertainty, but of possibility. She dreamt of a life where courage and kindness could intersect, where one small decision could change everything. And though she did not know it yet, the events of this single night would ripple through her life in ways she could not imagine. The man slept peacefully in the corner, unaware that his presence had already left a mark on her heart. The maid's daughter, too, was beginning to see that sometimes, life rewards those who act from kindness and trust, even when the world seems uncertain. One night, one act, one choice, and a journey that neither of them could foresee had begun. As the morning light grew brighter, the small home felt different. There was a sense of hope lingering in the air, subtle but undeniable. The maid's daughter smiled softly, knowing that her decision to open the door had not been a mistake. In fact, it felt like the beginning of something much bigger, a story of trust, change, and life's unexpected gifts. The next morning, the maid's daughter woke to the soft glow of sunlight streaming through the small curtains. The sound of birds chirping outside and the faint scent of breakfast cooking filled the room. She rubbed her eyes, stretching and recalling the events of the previous night. The stranger was still asleep in the corner, peaceful and quiet. She felt a strange mix of curiosity and excitement. Something about him was unusual. He carried a calm presence, yet there was a depth in his eyes that told of experiences far beyond her own. She quickly got dressed and went about her morning chores. She moved carefully around him, trying not to disturb his sleep. Her mother was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared a simple meal of bread, eggs, and tea. When her mother noticed the stranger still resting, she shook her head slightly but said nothing. She had learned long ago that the daughter's heart often guided her decisions, sometimes in ways adults could not fully understand. When the stranger finally woke, he looked around, blinking at the sunlight. He seemed refreshed, as if the night had offered him not only rest but also a sense of calm he hadn't felt in a long time. His eyes met the maid's daughter's, and he smiled gently. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying warmth. "Thank you again for your kindness. I feel lighter than I have in months." The maid's daughter returned the smile, feeling a small sense of pride. "You're welcome. I'm glad you could rest. Do you want some breakfast?" she asked. He nodded and joined them at the small wooden table. As they ate, the man shared bits of his life in a way that felt natural and honest. He spoke of hardships he had faced, jobs lost, opportunities missed, and moments when he had felt completely alone. Yet he didn't speak with bitterness. Instead, there was a sense of acceptance, a quiet understanding that life was full of ups and downs and that resilience mattered more than complaint. The maid's daughter listened intently. Her own life had been simple, filled with daily struggles and small joys. But as she heard the stranger speak, she began to see a wider world beyond her little town. His words painted pictures of places she had only imagined, of challenges she had never faced, and of dreams that seemed almost too big to believe. Yet, there was a sincerity in his tone that made those dreams feel possible. After breakfast, the man offered to help with chores, though the maid's daughter insisted it was not necessary. Still, he carried himself with care and humility, earning her respect. As they worked together, he spoke about ideas and lessons he had learned through life. He talked about the importance of patience, the value of honesty, and the strength that comes from helping others without expecting anything in return. At one point, the maid's daughter asked him, "Why are you here in this town at this time? Did something happen that brought you here?" He paused, thinking carefully before answering. "I suppose life brought me here. I have been traveling for a while, searching for purpose and a place where I could belong, even if only for a short time. Sometimes, the right people appear in the right moment, even if you don't realize it immediately." His gaze softened as he looked at her. And sometimes, a simple act of kindness, like yours last night, can change not only someone else's life but your own as well. The maid's daughter felt a shiver run down her spine. She didn't fully understand what he meant, but his words lingered in her mind. There was a strange sense of connection between them, as if meeting him had opened a door to something new, something beyond her ordinary life. As the day went on, the stranger shared more of his experiences. He spoke of failures that taught him lessons, of people who had doubted him, and of moments when he had almost given up but found the courage to continue. He told stories of hope, of creativity, and of resilience. Each story seemed to carry a hidden message, a small insight into how one could face challenges and still find light in the darkest times. The maid's daughter began to see the world differently. She realized that life was not just about surviving, but about learning, growing, and connecting with others. She saw that every struggle, every hardship, could teach something valuable. And she started to dream in ways she never had before, imagining possibilities she had never thought were within her reach. By afternoon, the stranger suggested a short walk to stretch their legs. They stepped outside, the sun now shining brightly and the streets glistening from the night's rain. As they walked, he pointed out small details. The way the sunlight reflected on the rooftops, the laughter of children playing, the subtle beauty in the ordinary. He spoke about the importance of noticing these moments, of finding joy in simple things, and of understanding that life's beauty often lies in the details most people overlook. The maid's daughter felt her heart open to new perspectives. She began to notice the little things too, the soft rustling of leaves, the scent of flowers along the path, the way the wind carried distant sounds. She realized that life was full of beauty if one only took the time to see it. During their walk, the stranger also asked about her dreams. She hesitated at first, unsure if her simple hopes mattered, but his encouragement made her speak freely. She talked about wanting to learn more, to explore opportunities beyond the town, to make a difference not only for herself but for those around her. The stranger listened carefully, nodding in understanding, offering small pieces of advice that were gentle but profound. "You have a good heart," he said finally, "and a mind capable of learning and growing. Don't ever let fear hold you back. The world can be harsh, yes, but it also rewards courage and kindness. One step at a time, you can create a life you never imagined." His words stayed with her as they returned home. For the first time, she felt that her life could change. Not instantly, not magically, but through effort, courage, and the choices she made. The stranger's presence, brief though it was, had opened her eyes to possibilities she had never considered. Back at the small home, the maid was preparing a light lunch. She noticed the difference in her daughter's demeanor, the spark in her eyes, and the quiet confidence that had not been there before. The maid smiled to herself, sensing that something important was unfolding. The stranger, sitting politely and helping where he could, seemed to fit seamlessly into their small life, if only for a day. Hours passed, and it was time for the stranger to move on. He had responsibilities elsewhere, and his journey could not be paused indefinitely. The maid's daughter felt a pang of sadness at the thought of him leaving. She had grown attached not just to the person, but to the sense of possibility he had brought with him. Before he left, He turned to her and said, "Remember, life is made of choices. Some are small, like letting a stranger stay for a night. Others are bigger, like choosing to follow your dreams despite fear or doubt. Every choice matters. And tonight, when you look back on this day, remember that you have already shown courage, kindness, and wisdom. Carry that with you always." She nodded, absorbing his words. They felt heavier than ordinary advice. They felt like a guide, a gentle push toward the life she was meant to live. The man smiled, thanked them again for their hospitality, and stepped out into the street. The sun now shone fully, casting long shadows on the wet ground, and he disappeared from view. For a long time, the maid's daughter stood by the door, watching the path he had taken. She felt a mixture of sadness, hope, and determination. She realized that her life had shifted, even in ways she could not yet see. The stranger had brought with him not just stories, but lessons, perspectives, and a vision of what life could be if approached with courage and kindness. That evening, she spoke with her mother about the day. She shared the stories, the advice, and the sense of possibility that had filled her heart. Her mother listened quietly, occasionally nodding. "You have always been kind," she said. "But it seems you have learned something more today. Hold on to it. Let it guide you." The maid's daughter reflected on the day before sleep claimed her. She realized that kindness could lead to unexpected connections, that listening and learning from others could open new doors, and that courage was not just about grand gestures, but about small, consistent choices that defined a person's path. She fell asleep with a sense of purpose and excitement. She didn't know where the stranger would go, or if she would ever meet him again, but she knew that her life had already begun to change. She had glimpsed a world beyond her small town, beyond the familiar streets and routines, and she was ready to take the first steps toward it. In the quiet of the night, the maid's daughter understood something fundamental. Sometimes, people come into your life for a brief moment, but their impact lasts forever. The stranger had been that person for her. A catalyst, a guide, a reminder that even small acts of courage and kindness could ripple far beyond the moment. And though the night had ended, the lessons of that day stayed with her. She felt stronger, wiser, and more hopeful. She began to dream of what could be, not just for herself, but for her mother and everyone around her. The world was bigger than she had imagined, filled with opportunities, lessons, and moments of beauty. And she had been given a glimpse, thanks to one man who had needed help for just a single night. After the stranger left, the maid's daughter felt an odd mixture of emptiness and excitement. She missed the calm presence of the man, yet she couldn't stop thinking about everything he had shared. His stories, his advice, the way he had looked at life with quiet confidence. It all lingered in her mind, like a spark that refused to fade. That day, even the chores she did felt different. She noticed things she hadn't before. The sunlight reflecting on the dishes she washed, the way the broom swept the dust with smooth, steady strokes, and even the aroma of bread baking in the oven. Everything seemed alive, more vibrant, as if the world itself had shifted slightly after the stranger had left. Weeks passed, but the impact of that one night didn't fade. The maid's daughter began to see her life and her surroundings in a new light. She noticed opportunities that had been there all along but had gone unseen. She started small, trying to apply the lessons she had learned from the stranger. She helped neighbors more willingly, shared a smile with people on the streets, and even offered to tutor younger children in reading and writing. With each small act, she felt stronger, more capable, and more connected to the world around her. One morning, as she went to the market to buy vegetables, she noticed a flyer pinned to a wall. It advertised a community event, one that promised workshops for young women to learn new skills and explore different careers. Normally, she would have ignored something like this. It was rare for anyone in her town to have access to opportunities beyond the ordinary. But something the stranger had said echoed in her mind. Every choice matters. One step at a time, you can create a life you never imagined. Without hesitating, she decided to attend. The day of the event, she felt nervous but determined. As she entered the small hall, she was greeted by women from different parts of the town, each carrying their own stories and dreams. There were instructors who spoke about entrepreneurship, education, and creative skills. There were people who encouraged others to think bigger, to push boundaries, and to explore ideas that had once seemed impossible. The maid's daughter listened carefully, taking in every word. One instructor spoke about the power of mentorship, of connecting with someone who had experience and wisdom, someone who could guide you through challenges. The maid's daughter's heart skipped a beat. She immediately thought of the stranger, realizing that he had been a kind of mentor, even for a brief time. His guidance had made her see possibilities she had never considered before. After the event, she began to experiment with small projects at home. She helped her mother plan better ways to manage their tiny household business, suggested new ideas for saving money, and even tried her hand at a few creative endeavors. Every attempt brought a sense of accomplishment, even if it was small. Her mother noticed the change too. There was a new confidence in her daughter's eyes, a quiet determination that hadn't been there before. Then, unexpectedly, an opportunity arrived that seemed almost like fate. A woman from the event remembered the maid's daughter and invited her to assist with a small project she was organizing. It was nothing large, just helping coordinate materials and guide a few young participants, but it was more than anything she had ever done. She agreed immediately, excited at the chance to contribute. Working on the project, she learned quickly. She discovered that she had a natural ability to organize, to encourage others, and to communicate ideas clearly. She was careful, attentive, and thoughtful in her approach. Others noticed her dedication and willingness to help. For the first time, she realized that her small life had the potential to expand in ways she hadn't imagined. Every task she completed, every word of encouragement she offered, added to her confidence. The stranger's words often came back to her during these days. Life rewards courage and kindness. She understood now that kindness wasn't just a fleeting act. It was a force that could create ripple effects. Helping others, even in small ways, could lead to opportunities and growth. She felt grateful for the night he had stayed in their home, for the lessons he had taught, and for the encouragement he had offered. One evening, as she returned home after a day of work at the project, she noticed a letter waiting for her. It was from someone she had met at the community event. They had heard about her dedication and wanted to offer her a chance to join a small internship that could teach her even more valuable skills. The maid's daughter could hardly believe it. Just a few weeks ago, her life had been routine and quiet. Now, doors she had never imagined were opening, one by one. Her mother saw the letter and smiled warmly. "It seems the world is noticing your heart and your effort," she said. "I am proud of you, my child. You are learning that life has more to offer than what we see in our everyday routine." The maid's daughter nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. She understood that opportunities didn't always come on their own. They were often created by action, by reaching out, by showing willingness to learn and grow. And yet, she knew that it all started with that single night, with the decision to help a stranger in need. In the days that followed, her life continued to shift. She became more engaged in her community, helping where she could and learning from those with experience. People began to notice her reliability, her honesty, and her willingness to take initiative. Slowly, she built a small network of support, a circle of people who believed in her potential and encouraged her to aim higher. At the same time, she felt a growing desire to understand the world beyond her town. She had always dreamed of traveling, of seeing places she had only read about in books, and of learning from different experiences. The stranger's stories had sparked this curiosity, opening her mind to ideas she had never dared to consider. She realized that ambition was not something to fear. It was something to nurture carefully, step by step. One afternoon, while helping with the project, she had a conversation that would change her perspective further. A mentor from the program asked her about her long-term goals. She hesitated at first, but then spoke honestly about wanting to explore the world, to learn, and to contribute meaningfully to her community. The mentor listened attentively and offered guidance, practical advice, and encouragement. "Your heart is in the right place," they said. "Combine that with patience and effort, and you will achieve far more than you imagine." The maid's daughter felt a sense of excitement she had never felt before. For the first time, She truly believed that she could create a different life for herself, one that combined her values, her talents, and her ambitions. She realized that change was possible, but it required courage, persistence, and openness to learning. At night, she would reflect on her journey so far. She remembered the stranger, the one who had stayed for just one night, and she understood that his presence had been a turning point. He had shown her that kindness and courage could create opportunities, that wisdom often came in simple words, and that one small action could ripple outward to affect many aspects of life. She began to write down her thoughts and ideas, recording lessons she had learned, goals she wanted to achieve, and ways she could continue to help others. Writing became a form of clarity, helping her organize her thoughts and plan for the future. She found herself dreaming bigger, imagining what her life could be if she continued to apply the lessons she had learned. Days turned into weeks, and the maid's daughter grew more confident in her abilities. She was no longer the quiet, hesitant girl who had opened the door on that rainy night. She was becoming a young woman with purpose, someone willing to take risks, learn, and grow. Each new opportunity, each act of courage, reinforced her belief that life could be transformed through determination, kindness, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. Then, one afternoon, a message arrived that would further change the course of her life. Someone from the community project invited her to participate in a larger initiative, one that could give her experience and exposure beyond her town. It was a chance to work with people from different backgrounds, to learn from experts, and to contribute in meaningful ways. She knew this was more than a simple opportunity. It was a step into a broader world. She shared the news with her mother, who hugged her tightly. "You are ready for this," her mother said. "Remember where you came from, but do not be afraid to reach for more." The maid's daughter felt a surge of determination. She understood now that her life was no longer limited to the small boundaries she had once accepted. She had tasted what possibility felt like, and she was ready to step forward. The stranger's influence was still with her, quietly guiding her through memories of that night, reminding her that life rewards courage, kindness, and effort. That evening, as she prepared for the journey ahead, she looked around her small home with gratitude. Every lesson, every opportunity, every act of kindness had led her to this moment. She understood that life was a series of moments, each connected to the choices we make, the people we meet, and the risks we take. And she was ready to embrace it fully. The days following her new opportunity were filled with excitement, but also with challenges. The maid's daughter had stepped into a world larger than she had ever known, one full of people with different experiences, backgrounds, and expectations. First, she felt nervous. She worried that she might make mistakes or that others would notice how little experience she had. But she remembered the stranger's words, "Every choice matters. One step at a time, you can create a life you never imagined." She tried her best, arriving early each day and giving her full attention to every task. She listened carefully to instructions, asked questions when she didn't understand, and observed how others handled situations. Slowly, she began to find her rhythm. She realized that learning wasn't just about following directions. It was about understanding the purpose behind each action and finding ways to improve. However, not everyone was welcoming. Some of the people in the program were skeptical of her abilities. They whispered to one another, questioning why a girl from a small town, someone so inexperienced, had been given a place in such an important initiative. The maid's daughter overheard the comments one afternoon and felt a pang of doubt. She wondered if she truly belonged here or if she had been foolish to think she could handle it. That night, she could not sleep. She replayed the day in her mind, thinking about the whispers, the mistakes she had made, and the moments she had felt unsure. She considered giving up, convincing herself that maybe she was not ready for this. But then she remembered the stranger's advice about courage, about taking steps even when the path was uncertain. She realized that challenges were part of growth, not a signal to retreat. The next morning, she returned to the program with renewed determination. She reminded herself that she had skills, patience, and the willingness to learn. She focused on small victories, completing tasks accurately, helping others when she could, and improving a little each day. Slowly, the doubts of others began to fade as they noticed her dedication and the quality of her work. She felt a sense of pride in proving, first to herself, and then to others, that she was capable. Still, challenges kept coming. One week, a critical project faced a setback. Materials were delayed, and coordination problems caused frustration among the team. People argued, tensions rose, and morale dropped. The maid's daughter felt anxious, unsure if she could make a difference. But she decided to step forward, offering practical solutions and helping to calm conflicts. She suggested reorganizing tasks, coordinating communication more efficiently, and checking that everyone understood their responsibilities. Her suggestions worked. Slowly, the project regained momentum. The team began to trust her judgment, realizing that her ideas were thoughtful and practical. The maid's daughter learned an important lesson. Leadership was not about authority, but about listening, observing, and helping people work together. She realized that even small contributions, when made with care and persistence, could have a big impact. Despite her growing confidence, she faced moments of loneliness. Her friends in the program came from families with more resources, more experience, and larger networks. She sometimes felt out of place, like an outsider looking in. But she reminded herself of her beginnings, of the home she had grown up in, and of the courage it had taken to open her door that rainy night. She understood that her unique perspective, her humility, and her kindness were strengths, not weaknesses. One evening, after a long day of work, she sat quietly in her room, reflecting on how far she had come. She remembered the strangers' stories about perseverance, about facing obstacles and refusing to give up. She realized that life was not about avoiding difficulties, but about meeting them with courage and learning from them. Each challenge she faced now felt less like a threat and more like a stepping stone. Then came an unexpected test. A new project required the team to present their work to a panel of experienced mentors. The maid's daughter was nervous. She had never spoken in front of such an audience before. Doubts crept in. What if she stumbled? What if her ideas were dismissed? The night before the presentation, she stayed up late, rehearsing and reminding herself of everything she had learned. She thought about the stranger, about the confidence he had instilled in her, and she promised herself that she would do her best, no matter the outcome. The day of the presentation arrived. Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke, but as she shared her ideas clearly and confidently, she felt a shift. The mentors listened attentively, nodding at her suggestions and asking thoughtful questions. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. The maid's daughter felt a wave of relief and pride. She had faced her fear, taken a step forward, and succeeded. For the first time, she truly understood that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. After the presentation, some of the mentors approached her personally. They praised her insight, her creativity, and her determination. They offered advice on how she could continue to grow and suggested opportunities for further learning and development. The maid's daughter listened carefully, taking every word to heart. She realized that challenges, even difficult and intimidating ones, could become pathways to growth if approached with patience, effort, and humility. Life at home had also changed. Her mother noticed the maturity and confidence her daughter had gained. She saw how her daughter handled challenges calmly, how she thought critically, and how she had learned to navigate complex situations. They talked often about the lessons she had learned, and her mother encouraged her to continue pursuing growth while staying true to her values. Despite the successes, not everything was easy. Some days were long and exhausting, filled with difficult tasks, tight deadlines, and moments of frustration. The maid's daughter had to learn how to manage her energy, prioritize tasks, and ask for help when necessary. She discovered that resilience was not just about working hard, but also about caring for oneself, taking breaks, and finding balance amidst challenges. One afternoon, a sudden problem arose in the project that required immediate attention. A critical resource had been misplaced, threatening to delay progress. The team panicked, unsure how to proceed. The maid's daughter, remembering everything she had learned about problem-solving and leadership, calmly suggested a plan to locate the resource and redistribute tasks to keep the project moving. Her clarity and composure helped the team focus, and within hours, the crisis was resolved. That evening, as she walked home, she reflected on the day. She realized that life would always bring challenges, big and small, but each obstacle was an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to prove her strength. She felt grateful for the experiences she had been given, for the lessons learned, and for the chance to make a difference. The maid's daughter also began to understand the importance of helping others through their challenges. Just as the stranger had helped her by simply being kind and sharing wisdom, she saw that she could do the same for others. She offered guidance to new participants in the program, shared her experiences, and encouraged them to persist even when the path seemed difficult. She learned that growth was not just about personal success but about lifting others along the way. Weeks turned into months, and the maid's daughter continued to face challenges with resilience and patience. Each day brought new experiences, some exciting, some frustrating, but all contributing to her growth. She realized that life was not about avoiding difficulties, but about approaching them with a clear mind, a kind heart, and unwavering determination. During quiet evenings at home, she often thought about the stranger who had stayed for one night. She wondered where he was, what he was doing, and if he knew how profoundly he had influenced her life. She realized that his impact went far beyond that single evening. He had shown her the power of courage, kindness, and perspective, and she had carried those lessons into every challenge she faced. The maid's daughter began to dream even bigger. She imagined creating projects that could help people in her community, initiatives that could provide education, opportunities, and hope. She wanted to use her skills, experiences, and insights to make a lasting difference, not just for herself, but for others who had limited opportunities. She felt a sense of purpose she had never known before, a clarity about the path she wanted to follow. Her mother watched these changes with pride. She could see that her daughter had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. She understood that the challenges the maid's daughter faced were shaping her into a person capable of achieving more than she had ever imagined. And she knew that the foundation of all this growth had been laid one rainy night, when a stranger knocked on their door and asked for shelter. Through the ups and downs, the maid's daughter learned that challenges were not punishments but opportunities. She understood that success was built through persistence, learning, and the willingness to face difficulties head-on. She learned that courage could be quiet, manifesting in daily choices, consistent effort, and a refusal to give up. By the end of the month, the maid's daughter had not only proven herself capable, but had become a source of inspiration for others. Her story began to ripple outward, showing people in her community that kindness, courage, and perseverance could truly change lives. She had transformed, not overnight, but through consistent effort, thoughtful decisions, and the lessons imparted by a single act of generosity. And so, as she looked back on the months since the stranger's visit, she realized that life's challenges, while difficult, had shaped her into a stronger, more compassionate, and determined person. She had learned to trust herself, to act with courage, and to embrace growth through every obstacle. She knew that more challenges would come, but she was ready. She understood that with resilience, patience, and kindness, she could face anything the world presented. The maid's daughter had come a long way since the night the stranger had knocked on their door. Life had changed in ways she had never imagined, yet she still remembered that moment as if it had happened yesterday. It had been the start of everything, the spark that ignited her courage, her curiosity, and her desire to grow. Every choice she had made since then, every step forward, had been shaped by that single act of kindness she had shown to someone in need. She woke early one morning, as she always did, filled with purpose. Her mind was already planning the day. Projects to organize, lessons to share with others, and ways to improve her community. She had become more than just a helper or participant. She was a young woman with influence, insight, and vision. People around her noticed the change too. Her mother watched with pride as she prepared to leave for the day, carrying a notebook filled with ideas, schedules, and notes for the various initiatives she had started to lead. Walking through the town, she felt a sense of connection with everyone she passed. She had learned that life was not just about personal success, but about contributing, helping others, and lifting those around you. A neighbor greeted her warmly, thanking her for the guidance she had offered to the younger children. She smiled and waved, feeling the quiet satisfaction that came from making a difference, even in small ways. Her days were long, but they were filled with purpose. She managed projects, coordinated efforts to provide education for children in need, and worked tirelessly to ensure everyone she helped felt supported and valued. The challenges were constant. Resources were limited, misunderstandings arose, and not everyone appreciated her efforts. But she faced each obstacle with the lessons she had learned from the stranger, from her mentors, and from her own experiences. She had learned to act with patience, humility, and determination. One afternoon, she received news that would change everything once again. A local organization had noticed the work she had been doing and wanted to collaborate with her on a larger initiative, one that could impact people far beyond her town. They invited her to lead a program focused on education, empowerment, and skill building for young women like herself. The maid's daughter was thrilled. This was more than she had hoped for. She realized that the efforts she had put in, the courage to face challenges, and the willingness to learn had opened doors she had never imagined. Her mother was overjoyed. "See what your kindness and courage have brought you," she said, embracing her daughter. "You started by helping a stranger, and now look at the lives you are touching. I am so proud of you." The maid's daughter smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She understood that life's greatest rewards often came from the simplest acts of courage and generosity. The program she led quickly grew. She coordinated volunteers, designed workshops, and created systems to reach as many young women as possible. She encouraged participants to share their dreams and ambitions, just as she had once shared hers with the stranger. She listened carefully, offered guidance, and helped them see their own potential. Her empathy and experience made her a natural leader, someone others could trust and rely on. Even as success came, she remained humble. She remembered her beginnings. The small home she shared with her mother, the modest meals, the struggles that had once felt overwhelming. She carried that memory with her, ensuring that she never lost sight of the values that had shaped her. Kindness, honesty, courage, and perseverance. She knew that her journey had been built not only on opportunity but on the choices she had made every day, the effort she had put in, and the lessons she had learned along the way. Despite her accomplishments, life still tested her. Funding for the programs was sometimes delayed, volunteers were not always reliable, and the demands of leadership were exhausting. She faced moments of doubt, wondering if she was truly capable of sustaining the impact she wanted to create. But every time uncertainty crept in, she remembered the stranger's words about resilience, courage, and the power of small steps. She reminded herself that progress was not always linear, but that persistence and dedication could overcome almost any obstacle. One evening, as she was finishing her work, she received a letter. The envelope was plain, but the message inside was extraordinary. It was from a man who had heard about her work and the positive changes she had been creating. He praised her dedication, her leadership, and her unwavering kindness. The letter expressed admiration for how she had taken the lessons from a single night of kindness and transformed them into something far greater than she had imagined. Reading the words, she felt a warmth in her heart, knowing that her efforts were making a real difference. The maid's daughter continued to expand her impact. She traveled to nearby towns, sharing her experiences, teaching skills, and inspiring others to believe in themselves. Each journey reinforced the lessons she had learned. That courage was built through action, that kindness could change lives, and that challenges were opportunities to grow stronger. She realized that leadership was not about recognition or reward, but about serving others with sincerity and dedication. At home, her mother watched with quiet pride. Their lives had changed, yet the bond between them remained strong. They still shared meals, chores, and conversations about daily life, but now they spoke of dreams, goals, and the broader impact they could make together. The maid's daughter often reflected on the stranger who had entered their home, understanding that his brief presence had sparked a journey far greater than she could have imagined. One day, during a program session, a young girl approached her nervously. She reminded the maid's daughter of herself at that age. Timid, unsure, and lacking confidence. The girl explained that she had dreams but didn't know how to pursue them. The maid's daughter smiled gently and shared her own story. She spoke of the stranger, the night of rain, and how a simple act of kindness had set her on a path of growth and opportunity. She told the girl that courage, persistence, and kindness could open doors even in the most unexpected ways. The young girl listened intently, her eyes wide with hope. By the end of the conversation, she was smiling, inspired to take her own first steps toward change. The maid's daughter realized that this moment was as important as any success she had achieved. It was proof that her actions could ripple outward, touching lives in ways she had never imagined. As months turned into years, the maid's daughter became a figure of inspiration. People admired her for her dedication, her humility, and her courage. But she never forgot the lessons that had brought her there, the value of a single act of kindness, the importance of learning from every experience, and the power of believing in oneself. She knew that her life had been transformed not by chance, but by the choices she had made, the effort she had put in, and the guidance she had received along the way. Despite her success, she remained approachable and compassionate. She never allowed herself to become distant or arrogant. She continued to mentor, to teach, and to help, knowing that true impact came from lifting others up. Her programs flourished, reaching more towns and touching more lives, creating a legacy of hope and empowerment. One quiet evening, she stood by her window, looking out at the town she had grown up in. Memories of that rainy night returned. The knock at the door, the stranger's weary eyes, and the choice she had made. She realized that life had a way of connecting moments in ways we cannot always predict. A single decision, made with kindness and courage, had altered the course of her life entirely. She whispered softly, as if the stranger could hear her across the miles, "Thank you. That night changed everything." And in her heart, she carried the truth of his lesson. That every act of kindness, every choice made with courage, and every step taken toward growth had the power to transform lives. Not just her own, but the lives of everyone she touched. The maid's daughter had become more than she had ever dreamed. She was a leader, a guide, and an inspiration. Her life was a testament to the idea that small actions, when rooted in sincerity and courage, could ripple outward and create extraordinary change. Even as her programs expanded and her influence grew, she remained humble. She returned home often, spending time with her mother, reflecting on the journey, and planning future initiatives. She knew that life was a continuous journey, filled with challenges and opportunities, and she was ready to face them all with determination, kindness, and the wisdom she had gained over the years. In the end, the maid's daughter realized that her transformation had been a combination of chance, choice, and courage. The stranger had come into her life for a single night, but the lessons he left behind had shaped her destiny. Her story became a reminder to all who heard it, that life's unexpected moments can lead to extraordinary change, that courage and kindness are powerful forces, and that even the smallest act can set in motion a journey of growth, purpose, and hope. And so, the maid's daughter continued her journey, carrying forward the wisdom, the courage, and the heart that had been awakened that one rainy night. She had changed, her life had changed, and the lives of countless others were being touched because of a single act of trust and compassion. Her story became a living proof that kindness and courage, when acted upon, have the power to transform the world in ways we may never fully imagine.